Okay, we're ready to, we have to taper these ends up to where the bridge pins are. Not quite to the bridge pins, but basically the taper has to run out in this low spot here. I'm just going to really do it by eye and just kind of make sure it kind of matches. We've got to take it down to like 150 thousandths. Right now it's at 250, so we've got 100 thousandths to come off of there. I removed the dust collector on this because I need to be able to see better, and the dust collector blocks my vision, so I can't really see where I'm going. So I'm just going to wear my respirator. Come out to be about 140, I don't know, 8 or 9, something like that. That's pretty good, and that makes it match pretty darn close to what we are looking for. There's not quite as a distinct line on the original as there is on this one, so what I'll do is I'll just take some regular sandpaper and just buff that off, that corner, and that'll round that off a little bit more, and it'll look just like the original. I've got quite an elaborate setup here, and I believe this will get the job done. First, I thickness sanded these two strips of wood so that they were just slightly thicker than this. That gives my router base something to ride on and that's stable. Then I super glued those to the table just with a little tiny drop of super glue in 3 places, and I think if I heat them up I can get that right off, no problem, or just pop it off one way or the other, because this is a Formica table. And I did the same thing with these 2 little tiny wedge strips here, and I wedged them in tight here as I glued them down. So the bridge doesn't move at all. It's in there really tight, although the bridge is not glued down, because I didn't want to take a chance on, you know, creating a problem with the bridge. So then I carefully, I put on a larger router base, and I carefully adjusted the height of this and took a practice cut here so I can check the depth. And with the calipers, it says it's about 41 thousandths deep. Yeah, about 41 thousandths deep, and that's slightly deeper than the thickness of these pieces of pearl. This one here says it's 40 thousandths, so you know that's going to be basically flush. And then this one here is about 38 thousandths. So I mean, and it depends on where you measure them. They actually measure different thicknesses, but the 40 thousandths is about the thickest. So anyway, the point being that the hole will be slightly deeper, just barely slightly deeper than the pearl, which is a good thing. I can sand the wood easier than I can sand the pearl, and I don't have much pearl left anyway, so I don't want to be sanding much pearl. So anyway, I've got the outline drawn on here real carefully. I've got this light shining on here so that it helps reflect that pencil. And now I'm basically going to route it out. You're not going to be able to see very much, to be perfectly honest with you, but we'll just have to see what we can see. I've got my close-up safety glasses, got my respirator, turning it on to get it going here. The problem with wearing all this gear is I can't blow on this to get rid of the dust. So therefore, I'm going to have to come up with a method to get rid of the dust because I cannot see my lines. Alright, my solution for blowing the air off is I've got an aquarium pump over here that you can't see with these little tubes blowing right here. They just put out enough air to, I think, that it'll keep the line clean, but I'm not even sure that it'll do it, so we're just going to give it a shot here and see. Well, I got to admit, I made a little boo-boo right there just then. I bumped that corner, but it fits in there now. We can fill that. I saved the dust off of this, and you're going to have to fill it anyway, so it'll be fine. You'll never see it, and that looks pretty good. It's pretty smooth, just about flush. The wood is just a fraction higher than the inlay, which is what I was going for. I can run this through my thickness sander again and just take it down just right to where I'm touching the pearl, where I really won't lose any pearl, because that was the goal here. We can't afford to sand the pearl any more than it already is. It's too thin already. Pretty tight fit. Fits right in there. Okay. We're going to rinse and repeat, as they say, and do the same thing on the other side here. Well, that ought to do that. We've got both of them inlaid. I'll glue them in place, do some real fine fill around there, and then we'll do the light sanding with the same process that we made this swale out of there anyway, and it'll just make it look perfect, I think. You can use a lot of different glues to glue inlay in. In this particular case, I'm going to use super glue. Mainly just because I've got a lot of work to get done and I'm in a hurry and I want to get this finished. What I'm going to do is take this Elmer's glue, just plain old Elmer's glue, put some down here on this plastic, and then I've saved some sanding dust from when I cut these ends off. So what I'll do is just mix in some sanding dust, quite a bit there, and then just mix it up. Make a paste out of it. Now you can just put the glue on and then add the dust. And that does work too, but I've actually found that if you just go ahead and make a paste out of it, it really does a good job. Now, I'll give that about 45 minutes or so to set up. The problem with using glue and wood thing is that it usually shrinks. In this case, it may not be a problem if it shrinks a little bit because, like I said, the wood's slightly proud. So we'll sand it down level, and I think we're going to be okay. If we have to add more, we'll just make up some more and add more later. Decided while the glue and filler is drying on these, I might as well start working on these holes. I was able to pop out this composite material, whatever it is. I don't know if it's plastic or what it is. And I thought I will help use that as a drill guide. I'm going to actually super glue this on here just lightly and use it as my drill guide just to help drill exactly in the same place. Okay, at the drill press, I've chucked up a 3/16 inch drill bit, which is the drill bit I usually like to start with on these things. I might have to increase the hole a little bit later, but for now we're just going to go with that, and that'll give me enough to line it up whenever I get ready to put it on the guitar. Well, now that I've got the holes drilled in there, I can lay this on top and line up the holes, and I can see that this is going to cover exactly what I want it to cover. It's going to work perfect. And I don't think you're going to hardly be able to see any damage. There's a little bit of scuff up in the front here where the bridge had pulled forward and scuffed the finish. But other than that, it's not going to be very noticeable that this has ever been replaced. So we're doing pretty good so far. Okay, we're going to use my thickness sander to clean this back up. We'll just slide it in there and let it just lightly take this off. I'm just barely going to adjust this each time so that I don't really remove any pearl, but I just get this all cleaned back up. Well, because this pearl is so thin, I don't dare take much more off with the machine. I'm going to just try to clean the rest of this up by hand. Okay, I've got me a piece of 220 sandpaper here, and we're going to see what we can do by hand. I've got the new bridge laid on top of here, holding it down. I put these bridge pins in there just a little bit to help locate it, although they don't really locate it because they're a little loose. But anyway, I'm going to try to hold it down and very carefully and very methodically trace around this and cut through the finish. That went good. Now, you can see there's quite a bit of finish still left on there where the bridge is going to go. Hopefully you can see that. It's really hard to tell if you can see it by looking from this side of the camera. But anyway, we'll now chip away all that extra finish, and then we'll smooth all this out. We'll get her glued down. This is a long, painstaking process here of just cleaning every little bit of this off of the finish. I'm using the planer blade, the little finger plane blade, kind of as a little tiny chisel. The way I'm using this, you notice my thumb, it's pushing it away from the finish because I don't want to scratch the finish. My fingers on my right hand are pushing it forwards. My thumb is pushing it away from the finish so that I don't accidentally scar the finish. Spent a lot of time cleaning this area up now. It's still a little bit ragged in terms of splintery type wood. But there's not much I can do about that. I don't want to pull all that wood out of there, and break all that out of there. So what I'm going to do is just get glue in underneath all the splinters and everything, and we'll just glue everything right back down. I don't think we'll have any problem. I've got it cleaned off really, really well. It looks like it's going to fit and match up really tight. I don't see how you could do it much better than that. The holes look like they line up good. Everything's pretty darn good on it. So I believe I'm just going to leave it as it is, get the glue on it, and clamp it up. As I've said on many occasions, the secret to doing a glue job is First of all, making sure that the surfaces meet up really well. Secondly, make sure they're clean. There's no other old glue or anything on there. Third, that the new glue covers it entirely. You don't want any air spaces, gaps, or anything. And lastly, clamping is absolutely the most important. You got to get it clamped really well and stable so that it doesn't move during the whole drying process. And so I'm going to let this dry at least 24 hours before we take the clamps off. And I've got glue on this already, and I've got glue on this, and it looks really good. And by chipping the finish off, that really holds it in place good, so it's really solid. Looks like it's going to be good. Now we're going to get the clamps on there. Okay, I've got the first clamp on here, and these little extra little deals that snug down. Quite a bit of glue squeezing out, so I'm going to get a wet paper towel and clean all that up first. Okay, I'm going to rinse the rag, get it good and clean, and do another wipe up. I took a second rag, clean wet rag, washed it all off real good, and now I've taken a dry rag and drying off all the residue, getting it nice. So it looks good. I really think it's going to be a fine, solid bridge. I don't think they're going to have any more trouble with it. Well, we've got the clamps off. The bridge appears to be on there just perfectly. You can see a little bit of minor scuffing around in a place or two, but I'll be honest with you, it looks pretty darn good. It feels nice. You can't even feel the inlays. They're in there perfectly smooth. We will dye it a little darker black to match this a little bit better later, but right now I'm going to try to determine where to put the slot for the new saddle. So this has a very large hole in the end pin here, as you can see, and normally I hang my little hanger off of that hole, but because there's no, I have to put an end pin in there. Well, this has this electronic end pin, so it's kind of complicated because I'm going to have to put this in temporarily and then take it back out to resolder those other wires and poke them up through here. So anyway, this is just going in temporarily. I'm only putting it on hand tight. That should be tight enough to do what I want to do. And it looks like it's going to work. So I can hook my little rig on this, and I'll have to put some leather under here to keep from scratching the top. Okay, that should give me enough to hold my 2 E strings while I'm temporarily locating the saddle. I have the strings tightened up to tension. I have the tuner on here. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to zoom in so that maybe you can see the tuner. And maybe not. I'll try to tilt it just slightly where you can see it a little bit there. And when I hit the E string, you can see it goes to the center. And when I note it at the 12th fret, pretty much goes to the center also. Here's the big E string. And you can see it's pretty much right. So that shows me that I've got the intonation pretty darn close. I will just fine tune it. That's how I always do it. And then, see, this little saddle is just floating on here, and I can move this saddle around wherever I need it to get it just right. And the basic formula is, when you note the note at the 12th fret, if it's sharp, well, then this is too short. In other words, the string is too short. If it's flat, this saddle is too far back, so therefore, flat is far back, sharp is short. So what that means is you can just figure out exactly where to move this saddle just by noting it here. It's really easy to do. And you can see that I've got it pretty darn close. I will just double check it and fine tune it over the next couple of minutes here, and then I'll pencil mark exactly where that goes, and then we'll get out the router and we'll cut that slot exactly where we want it. Okay, I'm going to connect the lines that I drew under the strings with that saddle, and I'm just basically going to draw them full length across the top here. And I drew lines on both sides of that little saddle, and that's a pretty small, thin saddle, so that this will help me set up the proper width here. But I've got it marked pretty good, and I know it probably can't see that on camera because it's pencil lead, and but if you get in the right light here with the window and everything, I can see it shining, so I can see it on there. Anyway, so now we're going to get out the jig and get everything set up and get the router going here, and then we'll put stops on where to stop the bridge or the saddle. I'm going to put the longest possible saddle I can on this, because in my theory is that the saddle helps transfer that sound across the top. So I'm going to put a long saddle, not quite to the hump, but you know, just short of the hump on both sides, and then that way, you know, the longest possible saddle I can to help spread the sound out on that top. Okay, I'm starting to put the rig on that will give me act as a base for the router. I just thought I've showed this in another video, but I just thought I'd show you that I do have foam, soft, very soft foam rubber pads on here. They're really soft, so that holds this rig up off of the guitar so that it won't scratch the guitar. And then we'll just slide it in place on the back side here. This one, we might have to re-rig this. I don't know if this is going to work or not. This bridge is much wider than standard, and I'm not sure my router will reach all the way up here to the slot, but hopefully it's got enough adjustment in this that we can make it work. So we'll see how that goes. I'll bring you back when we get her set up. Well, I've spent a lot of time lining this up and getting the depth and getting it straight across there, and learning a lot of things about the angles and different things, because you can't get everything perfect. So anyway, it's hard to explain it all, but it took a little bit of time to get it all straightened out. I put some pencil marks on here where I want to stop the bass at on both sides, and I'm just going to have to do that by eye because I don't have a good way of clamping anything on there for a stop at the moment, although I can see how I can make this jig better, and I probably will do that later on. But for now, we're just going to do it freehand on the stop, and we'll just have to see how that goes. That was pass number one. Looks exactly where I wanted it to be, so I think we're good on all that. Now I have a shim on here that I will take off in a minute that will move the router back to the perfect thickness for the right saddle slot thickness. But before I do that, I can tell the slot's not deep enough, so we're going to have to measure the depth and then adjust this to the right depth. Okay, I've made my adjustments for depth, and putting the safety gear back on, we're going to go back in and do that same slot a little deeper. That was the second complete pass, and we'll see how the depth is now. That looks much better by eye. We'll check it with our calipers here and see how deep it is. It's just at 100 thousandths, and that's almost halfway through the bridge, which is pretty good. I think I might try to go just a fraction deeper yet. I may go to 125 thousandths. So we have it about an 1/8 inch deep in there, and that's half of the thickness of the top. Okay, that was the third pass, and I believe that's going to be the good depth there. We'll check it, and I'll get back to you in a minute. I checked it with my micrometer and or my caliper, and it shows up to be 130 thousandths, which is 5 thousandths over 1/8 inch, and the thickness of this bridge is 250 thousandths, so we're good there. I like that. We're going to just stick with that depth, and now we'll take off the shim and we'll cut the next slot. That'll just widen the slot out a little bit, about half again as wide as it is. I'm using a 1/16 inch bit, and I want the slot to be close to 100 thousandths, and this should bring it right to very close to 100 thousandths. Well, that looks real good. That looks real good. See if I can give you an idea of how wide the slot is here. Probably have to take all my gear off here to check it accurately anyway. Well, best I can tell, it's 104 thousandths, 103 and a half, 104 thousandths. So that's pretty darn close to what I'm looking for. I have a saddle here that's pretty close. This is a piece of deer antler, and it's a pretty close fit already. It's just a little too thick, and it's about the right length, and it's way too high. But the first thing we're going to do is get the right width, the right thickness, so that we can get it down in the slot, and then we'll cut it to length, and then we'll shape the top to match the guitar. So putting on the safety gear here. I believe we've got it just about where we want it. It feels like a good tight fit in the slot, so that right now measures at about 107 thousandths, and so I measured the slot at about 103 or 4 thousandths, something like that, but it was hard to measure with that little tiny point in that slot, so that's pretty close to it right there. Okay, I've got the saddle fitting down in the slot real well. You can see there's two pencil marks on there. The first pencil mark, the lower pencil mark, is how deep the saddle goes down in the slot. The top pencil mark is my best guess as to how tall this bridge needs to be. And I'm going to leave it a little prouder there. We'll string her up and see how good I guess. The video was getting so long that I fit the action here and the saddle and all that off camera. At least I've got it about 95 or 98% there. I may have to tweak it just a little bit yet, but anyway, I moved ahead because the video is getting so long and just didn't film that part. And now I'm going to drill the hole right here in the corner where the pickup goes back through. Okay, now that I've got the hole drilled in here, I put all the wires down through the hole, and I'm sliding the pickup into the space, and it looks like that should work fine. Now, the only bad thing about that is I spent a lot of time getting the height of this bridge just right, or this saddle just right, and that's going to raise it up again, so I'm going to have to take some more off the bottom there. Didn't think about that, but just the way it is. I checked the thickness of this pickup, and it's 50 thousandths of an inch. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a very sharp pencil here, and I'm just drawing a line using the pickup as the gauge, and I'm just drawing a line of how much more I need to take off that saddle. So I'm going to have to go slide most of that off of there before I'm able to get the saddle back to the right height. Okay, so here we go again. We'll put the wires down through the hole. And get the pickup down in there good. Put the saddle back in the slot. And now the wires need to be resoldered to the end. Don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I've already got the wires cut off a little shorter. I've re-tinned them, and I'm going to see what I can do here to get this to go back where it was. That was fairly simple. Now we'll see what we can do about putting her back together. Okay, now that we have it all re-soldered, we can put the cover back on it. Tighten that up. And should be able to insert it back in there and put it on permanently this time. Alright, we got to roll up the sleeve so I can get my arm inside the guitar here. Put it all the way to the back and try to hit that hole blindly. And we did it. I actually made that look easier than that is. And here we go. Put the nut on it, the first nut, which tightens it down. It's the one that makes it snug. Okay, found a 13 millimeter. It's actually a 1/2 inch, but 13 millimeters close enough, about the same thing. And just snugging it up. I'm just waiting for it to feel like it got tight, and I don't want to go crazy tight on it. Right there is pretty snug. So we'll call that good. And then we just hand screw on the end cap there pretty tight. And that's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. The customer specifically asked me to put a new battery in this, and so I'm going to do that. And so we're going to mount all that back inside there so that it'll lay in there and not be a problem. I'll bring you back as we string her up. We're on the downhill slide. After getting it all under tension and checking it and everything, the bass E string is a little bit sharp on the intonation, so I'm going to take it back a little bit. I find that that's not uncommon on a lot of guitars. As a matter of fact, I find it pretty often. So, and then the same thing on the B string, which is real common. And we're going to take it back some. I believe that'll make it as close as we can get it. Well, it is often the case as I hurry up and try to get things done. I got ahead of myself just a little bit here, and I forgot to dye the bridge black to match the fingerboard. You know, it matches pretty good, and after I oil it, it would have probably matched even a little bit better, but I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll just go ahead and put the dye on here. I have to be very careful how I do this. We'll call that good enough before I make a mistake. Looks pretty good. Now we wipe that all off, and it'll look even better. Looks real good now. It's just really pretty. It looks as original as it can look. Well, the guitar is complete. It looks nice. I honestly don't think anybody would be able to tell that that bridge has been replaced. Unless they really understood every single model and knew that that little inlay piece wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to tell it. And that little inlay piece weakened the bridge anyway, which is why it cracked across that bridge. So that little inlay piece wasn't worth its weight in, you know, manure. So anyway, I just thought I'd show you one last little trick that I use. I made myself a little gauge quite a while back. Will that focus on that? Or maybe not. And you can see I have one end marked at 108.108 and the other end marked at 0.080. And then I take that in, I slide it in the narrow edge at the 12th fret, and I try to make sure that the string is just touching that. It's probably a few thousandths high, so it's 83 thousandths or something. And this side here is probably a thousandths high, so it's probably 109. So that gives you a pretty good, you know, way of gauging. I had to shape this and file this to the thickness I wanted for the gauge on the treble side. But anyway, it's just a little handy reference gauge there that I made, and I thought I'd just show I made it out of an old saddle, you know, and it works real good. Well, it wouldn't be a complete video series if we didn't show you what the final product sounds like. So I wish I could shred a guitar like some of the other people do on YouTube. I can't do that. So I can build them, I can fix them, but I can just barely play them. Got a nice clear sound. Got a nice clear sound. I think the customer ought to be real happy with that. I think the deer antler saddle with the new bridge and everything and getting rid of that composite material out of there probably helped the sound, if anything. Yeah, if you really look close, you can tell there's a little scarring right around it, but you know, you just can't, you can only do what you can do, you know, and it's fixed as well as I can fix it. I don't believe that your average person's going to look at it and go, hey, that bridge has been replaced. I don't think that's going to happen. You'd have to know a lot about them before you would know that that had been replaced. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this series on the Gibson Dove. We took it from the trash can to a treasure, and I hope you will subscribe to my channel, tell your friends about my channel, and give me a thumbs up if you would, please. That sure does help. It helps get these videos out in front of other people, and when the videos are getting viewed by more people, it gives me more incentive to make more videos, so it kind of helps all of us. So thank you very much. We'll see you on the next video.